when someone was getting jumped, essentially, when someone was getting jumped, yeah, what he did during that was probably one of the most important things. So I finally finished the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy. It's been quite a ride. I have this book second in the series, comfortably ahead of the Will of Ascension and comfortably behind the Final Empire. Before I get into my review, please like and subscribe and tell us what you think about Mistborn Era 1 in the comments. Also, this video is sponsored by the Critical Reader newsletter. Sign up for weekly emails about book recommendations, reviews, past reads, and all that good stuff. Plus, I'm doing giveaways on there too. For the scores, The Hero of Ages gets the following: plot 80, character 70, emotional impact 50, pacing 83, writing style 93, themes 80, uniqueness 100, book cover 75, overall score 74. Published in 2008, The Hero of Ages is the epic conclusion to the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy. In this final installment, the abstract villain called Ruin has been released, and we start the book with a bit of a time jump, and the world is on the brink of destruction. Everything we've come to know about the world, from the ash to the mist, seems to be killing people, and there's a lot of mystery behind it. This world is bleak, and it's more in a sort of helpless state than we was in the World of Ascension. And that's because in the World of Ascension, at least there was the hangover, like the residue from overthrowing the Lord Ruler. There's none of that here. There's no past victories to ride on. Vin and the team are going from place to place within the Empire, trying to find and decipher messages and the resources left behind by the Lord Ruler. There's so much confusion, so much doubt, so much existential crisis going on in this book. Sanderson weaves all this in together with themes of like sacrifice, hope. We have new mysteries and enemies to solve, and the religious and philosophical ramifications are so great, and they're very well done. What did I like about the book? I can't lie, Sanderson writes battle scenes really well. I got to give it to him. We had like many battles with Kolos and other Mistborn. I remember thinking in the battle that Sanderson really writes battle scenes really well. So I have to give him his flowers for that. I don't know why I started with the Kolos, because let's talk about Vin. Vin goes through a lot. You know, she's angsty as well, as always, because her place is weird because she's an empress and she's the heir of the survivor, yet she's just trying to be Vin, you know? Her identity is a big thing in this book, as it has been throughout the series. You know, Vin is still Vin, and she has all this acclaim and all this notoriety and everything, and even a religious sort of following within, you know, the Church of the Survivor. They look at her, you know, as the heir, as someone very important. My favorite character, Sazed. I know everyone pronounces it as Sazed, but Sazed is what does it for me. He's the character with the most development in the book. No one got even close to his level, and it's not just because of the religious aspect. The mental health and religious, and therefore his existential crisis throughout this book was spectacularly done. And I love the realism within the fantasy in respect to his grief as well. He is so lost, yet he's still trying to help. I rate that Sanderson actually illustrated multiple ways that Kelsey's death affected the world. Not just Kelsey's death, but also Tindlewood's death. But if I want to talk about Kelsey's death, his teachings and his example, because you know he was famous when, you know, when he was alive. Everyone knew what he was about, and it's crazy how we see in the city in this book that it really expands on the knock-on effect of what Kelsey had, not only in terms of governing, but the culture. You know, especially how people view people of certain classes, how the nobility are viewed, etc., etc., and the lengths people will go to control or neutralize a group of people. And what's crazy is that Saz, no, I'm not gonna say Sazed. Say's mentioned that there were factions within Kelsey's religion already, and this is what happens in real life. And Sanderson deserves props for executing such realism greatly. One of the great things about Vin, back to Vin. One of the great things I love about Vin is that she actually takes the time to get to know creatures in this series, not just in this book, but in the series. You know, in the first book, she's really getting to grips with herself and the crew. In the second book, it was with the Kandra, and then in the third book, now to a lesser degree, it's with the Colossus. And it's quite strange, and it's a good sort of like moral teaching that being open-minded will lead to good things. You know, being open-minded and being accepting will lead to the best things. There's a dog barking. I'm not sure if that's picking up. Anyway, on to other things I liked. Ruin. Ruin was great. I think I mentioned this at the end of my the World of Ascension book review. I was very worried about how Sanderson was going to execute an abstract villain. He done it really well. He done it really well. The way and mainly because I won't lie to you, this is a very clever series. It's a very clever book. Sanderson Ruin's manipulative tactics are so well done, and they've been built up across the series. Like he's like, like the free market capitalists, Adam Smith and all those philosophers. They talk about the invisible hand of the market and whatnot. That's Ruin in this book, is the invisible hand. So I've got some apologizing to do to Sanderson and his fans. I'll hold my hands up on that one. However, there's not that much apologizing I need to do. It's crazy how all of this kind of worked out, because let me just say, the ending, fantastic. Not enough to really boost up the rating of this book like that, but it was really good. I think this was the first book where the classic Sander launch was actually felt by myself. And then, I was reading, I was going through it, and I was just like, whoa, okay, this is legit. And then also you got, when I talk about the ending, obviously I'm talking about probably like the last like 150 pages or so. But like the ending and what actually happens and the way everything's wrapped up as well. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. It was very satisfying to me. And credit where credit is due. He stuck the landing. He really did stick the landing. And I like that Sanderson, there's a lot of closure with the ending of this book. It wraps up the series nicely. And I liked what happened with all the characters. There's not something that happened with the characters that were alive by, the Hero of Ages that I disliked. I still dislike Kelsey's death. I still dislike Indlewood's death, the Lord Ruler thing. I get into that in my Mistborn Era 1 video. So that's high praise. But yeah, this book is like rated in the 70s. So what did I not like? And I just lied. There is one person's ending I did not like, and that was Tenson's. That was Tenson's. You know why I didn't like his ending? Not because of what happens, but because of what happens. Like, when it comes to me, and if I'm reading a book or I'm invested in a series that's about a crew, and they all have multiple roles, and they have mysteries and theories they want to test and that they've got to discover, I need a link up. We have to link back up. It's one of the reasons why I love Stranger Things, because everyone goes out and they always bring back a piece or a theory of the upside down, and they're discovering new things, and then they come back and they talk about it, because you see it as the viewer that one group knows this but the other group doesn't know it, and they need to know it, and the other people in the group all need to share the information. I like a link up. If I need to get somewhere, or a character needs to get like back to their friends and to their family, I love that. I need that. We didn't get that with Tenson, and that might be a bit of a spoiler, but we didn't get that, and I hated that we didn't get that. I was so looking forward to it, and I think that, okay, this is a spoiler. Sanderson kind of threw away the relationship that he built between Vin and Tensun in The Well of Ascension. He kind of threw it away here because there was no link up again. I really, really didn't like that. It's sad that Tensun never got to see Vin again. Also, I got halfway through this book and thought to myself, I wonder how this will end. And not in a good sense. And actually, you know what? This is in a wrong category. But you know when you get to a book and you're like 100 pages or a couple hundred pages left, and you're like listing off the things that need to get done, and you're like, I don't think this is gonna get done. I had a similar feeling with this book. I got up to page 457 before I realized that, one, the sieges were getting boring as well, the whole siege story, but I'll get into that. And two, I was like, okay, I wonder how this will end. Because like we're in the middle of yet another siege, and it's like, okay, all right. To be fair, it does end pretty well, actually very well. But the main thing to take away from that is that I got to page 457 and not a lot was going on. And I'd rather have skipped the whole siege business again. What's wild as well is that this book, I think, especially the middle part, I've talked about the ending, but the middle part, like, last fifth of the book is good. First fifth of the book is just the beginning. You got, things have been set up. Second, third, and fourth, fifths of the book are very boring. And that's saying something because The Well of Ascension had the same issue. The whole business with sieges and having that be so prolonged really drags down this book in terms of either just, I don't know, progressing the story. So this is the most, I think the most boring parts of this book are definitely the most boring parts of the series. But the ending of this book makes up a little bit for it more than the ending of The Well of Ascension makes up for the boring parts in that book. It's kind of weird because on my teleprompter here, which is my script, I do have it, and my script, I wrote this kind of rough script as I was reading the book, and I do have here that I felt this was the most boring in the series, but thinking about it now as I'm recording, I had to change my mind on that. Where are we? The rebellion in this book didn't feel like a rebellion at all. In terms of atmosphere, this book definitely ranked the lowest for its supposed rebellion. It was kind of unnecessary, and it's kind of linked to the siege and the city that they need to get into for the Lord Ruler's resources and the message that he left, which at the end was actually probably the weakest message, if I recall correctly. But I think the interactions between how they were actually going to get into the city could have been done a whole lot better, and it could have moved the story along at a lot better pace. But I don't know how to pronounce that city. Is it Utero? Utero? I don't know. But Spook was sent there to spy and listen, and we finally get to see Spook in his element. And it was good until it wasn't good. Mainly because of the inferiority complex. Because it wasn't explored that much in the previous books. Spook's story in this book it lacked satisfaction, I would say. Because yes, he was the quiet one in the previous books. it didn't seem like he had an actual inferiority complex. He was just introverted and quiet and spoke a weird Eastern slang with his wild accent and dialect. I didn't think that he was actually feeling lesser than. I might have missed something, but to me, it didn't feel like that. He was just quiet. The only time that he really actually came out of his shell a bit is when he tried to, like, get with Vin, and that got shut down quickly. So reading his thoughts about these things, it was a little too late. I think it's not like with Sazed where it's been built up. Vin, it's been built up. Even Elend, even though I didn't really care for him, is built up. But Spooks wasn't, in my opinion. So it was strange. I think with that, it would have been better to not to have an inferiority complex, but to be just kind of have Spook really wanting to prove himself without having that complex. Like, he's quiet, he's ignored, just him wanting to come out of his shell as opposed to what actually did happen. But again, there's another layer with that I won't spoil. That's legit, and that I have to give Sanderson props on. You know, I won't mention it. But yeah. Also with Spook, just lastly, the whole he wants to be like Kelsier thing's a bit weird. And it didn't seem legit because like he said, he was the one, he wasn't even picked by Kelsier. He was a +1, and even though he was part of the crew and we did recognize Spook as part of the crew, he wasn't close to Kelsier like that. I get why Elend, after he had to, like, when he became leader, thought about Kelsier a lot and was like, like I think he was a bit jealous, like that Kelsier could rally the troops, unlike him. I think if Sanderson to effectively speak about a character that kind of fell in Kelsier's shadow, he obviously got partly Elend because they were both leaders, but in terms of people who knew Kelsier the best, you've either got to do that storyline with Docs or Marsh. Those are the two. I don't think you can really get that off with Spook, because even though I know there's an idealization there with who Kelsier was, it doesn't hit because, like, Spook is so far removed from Kelsier. There's no history there, whereas Docs and Marsh have deep history with Kelsier. But yeah. But it's weird because even though Ellen didn't have history with Kelsier, it worked in the Well of Ascension for him because he took over as leader. So there was that commonality there, at least. And Sanderson did well to not try to make it more like Ellen knew Kelsier more, or had any sort of irrational sort of thoughts about him. He asked the crew, what would Kelsier do? He asked about Kelsier, but yeah, Spook, I don't know. It just didn't. It was a mismatch. It was a mismatch. We get more of Marsh in his book, and not in a good way. With Marsh, it's like he was important in terms of, the magic system, how it worked, how you needed certain people with certain skill set to accomplish. I can't speak. You need certain people with certain skill set to accomplish certain things. With Marsh ticked the boxes perfectly for that, right? Again, I didn't like his storyline. I didn't like his arc. Didn't like his ending. I did like the one thing he did. If you know, you know. I did like during the fight, during how would I know when what's I'm gonna do this without spoiling it. When someone was getting jumped, essentially, when someone was getting jumped, yeah, what he did during that was probably one of the most important things. So, but it's just sad. Marsh's story is just so sad, and just not in a good way. it's just like, damn, like we couldn't have him do more. We had to leave him like this. So it's quite something. I I've seen a few reviews about, what people thought of this book and whatnot. I didn't guess who the hero of ages was. Um, like I say, I always switch off when I read these things. I try to take it, as openly as possible. So I wasn't really, and I don't try to piece things when I'm reading books. Not really. Kind of just let it come to me and then have it explained, and I'm like, oh, damn, nice. So the hero of ages, I liked that ending. Loved the ending of this book. So yeah, it was alright. It was nice. It was a nice close. It was a nice close to the series. So I think Branson stuck the landing for sure. And I don't know, this might will it change my mind about the Cosmere? Who knows? Anyway, on your screen is a playlist of book reviews that I've done. Have a look. I revamped my thumbnails as well, so it's a bit more clearer as to what my scores are. I used to go into two decimal places, so now I've stopped that. Um, but thank you for listening. No, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.